All right, so today we're going to dive into something pretty powerful. It's a personal reflection, and we're going to be looking at an excerpt from the Camino Within.
Okay.
It's by the Stars Lebanon, and it really digs into finding hope and a new perspective during wartime. Like, how do you even begin to process that?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's one thing to read about historical events, right? To get the facts, the dates, the big picture. But
Right.
this excerpt really takes us into the heart of the experience. It shows us how someone actually lived through these incredibly difficult times. And what's amazing is that what comes out of it are these surprisingly universal truths that we can connect with no matter what we're going through in our own lives.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The setting is so important, right? It's July 1992, Nasr el-Chuf in Lebanon.
Yeah.
And this is like the tail end of a 15-year civil war.
Wow.
And the author, they paint this really vivid picture for us. No electricity, which means you have this incredibly clear, star-filled sky. But then you contrast that with the scarcity of food, the constant worry about safety, and just this overwhelming desire for the war to finally end. Like, doesn't that just hit you, that contrast?
It really does. You've got this immediate, like, in-your-face hardship, and then above it all is this immense eternal beauty. And it's not just poetic, you know, it really speaks to something deeper. It's like, even in the midst of chaos, we humans can still find a way to see beyond it all, like to find solace, you know, to ground onto a broader perspective.
Totally. And in this environment, amidst all that's going on, the author really pinpoints hope as the driving force, the thing that keeps people going, even with that constant threat. I mean, the sound of explosives was just a normal part of life. People were still sending their kids to school, still finding ways to laugh, still pushing forward together towards something better. What do you think fuels that kind of resilience in the face of that kind of danger? Is it just like a survival instinct kicking in, or is there something even deeper at play?
Wow, you know, that's the question, isn't it? And while survival is, of course, a basic instinct, the author's observations seem to hint at something more. Like, you can almost feel this inherent human need to imagine a future, even when the present is so bleak. Sending those kids to school, sharing a smile, those are acts of defiance against despair, fueled by this belief that tomorrow can be different.
Oh, absolutely. Okay, but here's something that really made me pause and think. The author suggests this, well, almost paradoxical idea that war, in its own way, can actually unite people. Obviously not in a celebratory way, but in a way that comes out of shared hardship.
Right.
So what could possibly lead to that kind of unity, even if it's born out of something so unwanted?
Yeah, it's a powerful thought, right? And the author draws this fascinating connection between our basic needs and this sense of unity. Think about it. When things are peaceful, when we have food, shelter, safety, those things become almost invisible to us. We take them for granted and maybe become more focused on our own individual goals and desires. But when a whole community is suddenly stripped of those very foundations, when safety, food, security are all gone well, that creates a shared vulnerability, you know?
That's for sure.
Suddenly everyone's in the same boat, facing the same struggles, experiencing the same lack. And that shared experience, that shared absence, it brings people together in this incredibly powerful, even if unwanted way. They're united by the very things they're missing, all driven by this hope for something better.
Man, that's a lot to unpack, isn't it? Like, it's the absence of the things we normally expect that can actually draw us closer.
Exactly.
And then, to add another layer to all this, the author shares this very personal reflection, one that might be a bit surprising. Gratitude for having lived through the Civil War.
Yeah.
Like, whoa, that really made me step back and think.
Yeah, it's definitely not a viewpoint you hear every day. It challenges our assumptions about how we're supposed to feel about war. But the author isn't glorifying the suffering. What really comes through is this deep sense of astonishment, not at the war itself, but at how people can treat each other during times of, well, perceived peace and stability.
Right. It's like the author is saying that people can actually hurt each other more when things are normal, when there's a big obvious conflict going on. That's a pretty heavy statement, isn't it?
It is. It makes you wonder what kind of experiences might lead someone to that conclusion.
Yeah.
What kind of peacetime interactions are they contrasting with wartime experiences? It really raises this important point that conflict isn't always about bombs and fighting. Maybe the author saw these more subtle, insidious forms of harm playing out in peacetime things, driven by competition, social divides, maybe even just a widespread indifference to other people's struggles. Because in wartime, when there's a common enemy, when everyone's suffering together, it can, paradoxically, create a stronger sense of purpose, a deeper sense of compassion within that community. It suggests that just because there's no big war going on doesn't mean there's no harm. It just might be expressed in different ways.
Okay, let's shift gears a little bit. Go back to that image of the star-filled sky.
Yeah.
Because for the author, this wasn't just a pretty sight. It was a deeply personal, formative experience, especially as a young child, just 5 years old.
Oh, wow, 5 years old. To imagine being that young and surrounded by so much turmoil, the constant fear, not knowing what tomorrow would bring, and then to look up and see this vast, unchanging, beautiful sky full of stars. The author talks about being completely captivated by it, counting the stars, finding wonder in their beauty without needing any scientific explanation, just pure awe and fascination.
And for this child, those stars became something much more than just celestial bodies. They were seen as something deeply comforting, like the eyes of God, offering reassurance, hope, and this feeling that there was something bigger, more permanent than the chaos happening all around.
It's so powerful how this child, facing such instability, finds comfort and meaning in something as constant and beautiful as the night sky. It speaks to our human need to seek out hope and wonder, even when surrounded by darkness.
Exactly.
Those stars become this potent symbol, right? This symbol of something that endures, something untouched by the conflict.
And this experience led to a real shift in perspective. The author realized that life wasn't just about the war, that even amidst all that struggle, there was still room for hope, for joy. And there's this sense of protection that comes from looking up at the stars. Like the vastness of the universe offered a sense of safety, of perspective.
Absolutely. It highlights our need for connection, for believing in something bigger than ourselves, especially when our own reality feels so fragile.
Right.
And feeling watched over, protected by that vast sky, well, that can bring a deep sense of comfort, of resilience.
This memory, this childhood experience, became a turning point. The author describes it as a wake-up call, shattering a kind of apathy and sparking these deeper questions about the meaning of life. And that image, gazing at the stars until dawn and then going back home to tend to wounds, that's just so powerful, so symbolic of finding strength in quiet contemplation.
It really is. It's a beautiful metaphor for finding inner strength and clarity amidst chaos. That act of looking towards something constant, something beautiful, provided the strength to face the challenges, to begin healing.
And then there's this detail about a stone found that same night under the stars, that the author carried as a constant reminder to stay brave, to overcome fear, like an echo of the steadfastness of those stars.
A physical reminder, right? It's like this tangible link to that pivotal moment, to discovering hope.
Absolutely. So as we pull all these threads together, the core message that emerges is this: attitude is everything. Always look for the stars in life. It sounds so simple, but it carries so much weight. And it goes way beyond just the context of wartime Lebanon, doesn't it?
It really does. It's about actively seeking those sources of light in our own lives, those sources of hope, inspiration, constancy, no matter what we're going through. It's about choosing to look for the positive, the enduring, the beautiful, even when things feel really, really tough.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with a question. What are the stars you look for in your own life? What gives you hope, guides you, helps you navigate your own unique challenges? It might not be the literal stars in the sky, but what are those things that offer you strength and inspiration? It's definitely worth taking a moment to think about.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's it for this deep dive. Until next time.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening.
Yeah, it's been great.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Take care.
Bye.